Welcome to Lazio Lounge, the one and only Lazio podcast in English, brought to you every week with co-hosts Vittorio Campanile and Alison McKenzie. You can listen and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Spreaker. Please remember to rate and review the show. You can also support our show on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at just $2 a month, and you will help us improving our show. And now it's time to talk about Lazio. Hello everybody and welcome to Lazio Lounge. I'm sorry for my voice, but this is what happened when you're living in England and Felipe Caicedo decided to score the winning goal in the last second of Lazio match. So I'll try my best. Luckily for you, with me there is Alasdair McKenzie. Alasdair, how's your voice?
I think it's doing better than yours, if I'm honest. But, this is just yet another example of the kind of professionalism displayed by Vittorio Campanile. The show must go on. The people need to hear your thoughts on Felipe Caicedo, even if you can barely talk.
I have to be honest, I don't know if I shouted more at the goal of Caicedo or at the penalty they didn't give to Caicedo a couple of minutes before. I thought that was a penalty, even though today reading a couple of newspapers they said that the push wasn't hard enough to get a penalty, but from the TV, for me it was a clear penalty. So I don't know if I shouted more there or in the goal. But Alasdair, this was a typical match that was a trick for Lazio, right? The last year, for example, Lazio went ahead with Parolo, if I'm not wrong, and then Sassuolo scored the equalizer and the match finished 1-1. This year we saw a mature Lazio, can we say like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't just today either. This is becoming, dare I say it, this is becoming a trait of this Lazio team, is that they are showing this ability to stick in games right until the final moments and find ways to win games that in the past they haven't managed to. So, previously Lazio have been accused of being very inconsistent and not showing up for matches that they should be winning. And we saw that, I suppose, at the very start of the season against Spal. But more recently, they've completely turned that stereotype on its head. And now that Fiorentina, Milan and Sassuolo, all those games have been level at 1-1 going into the final 10 minutes, and Lazio have found a way to win them. So, yeah, obviously, it's a terrific trait to have. It's the kind of thing that if Antonio Conte's Inter, for example, did it, or if Max Allegri's Juve in the past had done it, everyone would use that as an opportunity to rave about the winner's mentality that those kind of coaches can instill in their players. And I think Inzaghi has shown that he's been able to do that now, because 5 wins in a row and 3 of those wins coming so late on, that's not a coincidence. That is something that he's managed to do to this team to instill them with the belief that they can always go on to win these games and up until the final whistle's gone. So yeah, absolutely delighted with it.
It's funny that you're saying that, because this morning, for example, I was reading a couple of interviews of Bruno Giordano, for example, and even other couple of Lazio journalists saying, yes, but you cannot win every match at the last minute. Lazio has to win much easier, which is completely the opposite of what you were saying. And, it would be nice to win every match 5-0, 4-0, 4-1, but Lazio have been playing against Fiorentina, that it's a very good team. Sassuolo, it's a very difficult team to play away, etc. And winning this match in the last minutes proves you. And I thought that we saw it yesterday, that Lazio in the last 10 minutes were really pushing to win the match, while last year, for example, in the last 10 minutes, the players were like, okay, let's get 1 point, it's better than a defeat. And this makes all the difference, I think, Alasdair.
I feel like I should just talk for about 5 minutes now while you rub your throat and drink a cup of steam or something. um, Absolutely, and I suppose that comes back to the fact, though, that it's all a matter of perspective, isn't it? And that's why I kind of brought up the Antonio Conte Inter thing, is that it kind of depends on which teams and which coaches you're talking about, how people respond to these results. I don't think there's anything but a positive response to winning games late on. I think it's a fantastic trait to have, and even if when teams aren't at their best, that they manage to do that. And don't get me wrong, Lazio have been essentially in a position where they feel like they should have won games far more comfortably than they have for almost the entirety of this season. It's I was thinking about this earlier. I don't think there are any games so far this season that you can say Lazio were comfortably beaten, and it was the right result, and we can't have any complaints about it. Because even the games Lazio have lost, they've either been in a position to win, like against Cluj and against Spal, or they've failed to take opportunities to put themselves in that position, like they did against Inter. So I think that, yeah, like I say, it's about perspective, but I think this kind of run of form and this kind of these kind of performances deserve to change the narrative about Lazio a little bit. And I tweeted something to that effect last night about the fact that when does it come to the point that people need to stop just talking about Lazio as being the inconsistent team when we're discussing the current lineup of contenders for the Champions League? And it was quite, you got the expected response, which is basically most people quite rightly saying, well, when they get in the Champions League. But I think that my point was more on current form and talking about the teams as they are at the moment and as how they've performed so far this season. That narrative doesn't really deserve to exist anymore. Lazio are showing fantastic consistency in Serie A. I don't think that the Europa League campaign is a way of persuading me that of something else, because let's get this absolutely straight. Lazio have put out a rotated team in the Europa League that isn't capable of performing at that kind of level in such a tough group. And that causes its own concerns, and we've talked about that at length, and I think the strength and depth is a big issue, but that is very different from having your strongest team every week in the league and putting in these performances. So, yeah, Lazio are managing to dominate games. They're managing to win games in all manner of ways. They're scoring a hell of a lot of goals. They're not conceding an awful lot. So we are, I think, now seeing the kind of consistency that we haven't done for about 2 years.
The other thing, Alasdair, is that Napoli is a little bit playing like Lazio in the past, right? Because Napoli should have won against AC Milan. They got 1 point. And they're struggling. So on one side, we are seeing Lazio playing much better. On the other side, we are seeing a team that should have been third, and everybody considered Napoli favorite for the third position, struggling a lot and playing really bad. Atalanta is struggling now. And so, to be honest, Lazio and Roma are favorite for the last 2 Champions League position at the moment. And, you have to be honest, and I think it's a true fact at the moment.
Can we just take a moment then to say thank you to Fabio Liverani and his boys down at Lecce for really doing us a favour?
I would say thanks to Olsen, but if you want to say thanks to Liverani, okay, fine with
Robin
that.
Olsen is more of a Laziale than most of us, I think, but...
I mean, okay, they scored a penalty. What the hell are you doing? Why are you fighting with Lapadula? And honestly, Alasdair, I saw your tweet, so I don't know if you saw what happened after the penalty. But why give the red card to Lapadula? He didn't do nothing at all. This is something with the VAR I don't understand. Olsen pushed away Lapadula. He should have get the red card. Lapadula didn't do nothing. This is something I don't understand. Still, very fine for us because, with the draw, Cagliari is at the same points with Roma. If Cagliari would have lost, Roma would have been fourth alone. So, in a certain way, we are happy that Cagliari didn't lose.
Yeah, I mean, I should say as well, I think Cagliari are set to have a very good season by their standards, but I don't see them as Champions League rivals this season. I think that they're doing very well at the moment, but we can't expect them to continue to be pushing for the top 4 until the end. I might be wrong, but that's the way I see it. And so then, in that case, yeah, you mentioned Napoli there. I think that looking around at the kind of traditional rivals for those places, things are going very well for us. Not only are Lazio continuing to win games, but yeah, like you say, Napoli is they're in all sorts of problems at the moment. Well, I mean, we've basically forgotten about Milan in this race now. To be 13 points ahead of AC Milan after 13 games is is quite something, really. And then Roma, yeah, I think you're right. I think Roma themselves are probably the biggest rivals at this stage for those Champions League spots. I do see Atalanta making a bit of a comeback because I'd be amazed if they get out of their Champions League group. And if at that point, for me, it kind of depends on whether they drop into the Europa League or not, because their squad's not the biggest. And if they get knocked out of Europe altogether, I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a real push after New Year. But yeah, things are kind of falling into place for Lazio at the moment. But I think they're going about it in the right way because they seem to be just focusing on themselves, focusing on their own performances, and it's there's a hell of a lot of comparisons being made with the team of 2 years ago, the 17-18 team. You know, Immobile in this form, Alberto in this form, the team scoring so many goals, this kind of confidence going through the team. And I think that the true test of that we're about to see. I'll be celebrating my 30th birthday by heading along for Lazio Juventus in a couple of weeks, and that's going to be the real test of where this team's at, I think.
Your birthday or Lazio Juventus?
Yeah, both. See if they can handle the occasion of such a big game on such a big day. That's up to them, really.
Yeah, I can feel the pressure now already for that big day. Alasdair, you usually come up with stats. I'll give you one. The one of Caicedo was the first goal of a Lazio player coming off the bench. What tells you this? That the bench is not good enough? Or it's just coincidence?
Yeah, probably the first thing, if I'm honest. I mean, especially in the attacking parts of the team, we are just so limited. And the only player you would say, I suppose, that you would expect to come off the bench and score is Caicedo. So well done to him for doing it. It was a great goal, came at an important moment, and he has made his own contributions. But yeah, I think that maybe when Correa has been benched, for example, you'd like to see him contribute more off the bench. We've talked about that before. But yeah, I mean, it's not exactly like when we've got our full strength 11 out there that you look down at the substitutes and you think, right, well, that's full of match winners. You know, there have been a few in their own ways. We talked about Jordan Lukaku's impact against Fiorentina off the bench. We're yet to see that be replicated, but he can do that from time to time. I think that the midfield has been a real issue. You know, Danilo Cataldi has been good when he's been given opportunities, but that doesn't happen nearly often enough. And for me, I don't think we've seen enough from the likes of Berisha or Parolo really when they've come on to really make a difference in that regard. So, yeah, on the one hand, yeah, I mean it's concerning, but on the other hand, they are still getting the results. But yeah, I think it just comes back to the same thing, which is that the squad just isn't very deep.
Alasdair, instead, with Patrick, Lazio is unbeaten. Arvid is asking, is Patrick the real deal now?
The secret weapon. Well, I mean, he's probably, I'd say, maybe after Caicedo, the player to have come out with the most credit from the game yesterday. Because when he was brought back into the team not very long ago, there was a lot of eyebrows raised, and although he has had some decent performances in a Lazio shirt before, he's yet to really convince the public at large that he's an answer in that position, especially in a back three. But he is convincing more and more. He does offer that ability to kind of have more calmness on the ball and be able to pick the right passes and stay calm under the high press. The kind of thing that we just so badly couldn't do against Celtic, for example, in those games, the defence just panicking. So yeah, then it's really down to his defensive abilities, and I have to say, I think that side of his game has probably improved. I don't know about you, but in
Ye-
terms of him being the answer, I don't, I think he is still Patrick, isn't he? Like he'll have the odd good game, but look, he's the kind of player I'm talking about. He's not going to be the guy who takes this team to another level, but it's nice to see him, Inzaghi, doing what he does and getting the best out of a player and making a pretty average player play better than he really is.
I think Inzaghi like to have Patrick because he's able to play the ball from the defense, and this is what he's doing. Yesterday he was quite good even defending. In a couple of chances he was good in covering his man. So he's improving, but as you were saying, he's never going to be Maldini. So you know, you know what you're getting from him.
There's another comment on this actually. Erfan Goharian, who asked us in the last podcast, I think, about the right wing positions, and he also said Patrick MVP of the match. I don't like that. I'm going to say man of the match. By the way, it was my pleasure to see after the last podcast discussion, our right wing was much more active. It wasn't the best day for Lazzari, especially in the second half, but I'm glad Inzaghi has observed and addressed this issue. So I've got two questions for you on the back of that, Vittorio. First of all, in the first half, I thought Lazio actually looked pretty good, but yeah, faded off during the game. And secondly, what do you think of that comment overall in terms of how the team attacked down the right and maybe Patrick's contribution to that?
I think something changed in the sense that Lazio finally was not only attacking centrally, but using a little bit more Lazzari and Lulic. I thought Lukaku didn't play well. I was expecting much more from him when he came in. He saved a chance, but when we were attacking, he wasn't doing that much, honestly. So I was a little bit disappointed. Lazzari very good in the first half. Maybe he was tired in the second because it was raining heavily during all the match, and he's not a big body. And the fact that he had to play all those matches and he's going to be forced to play even Thursday because Maruzic is still out, it doesn't help him recovering. That's one of my biggest concerns. I saw people asking, who are you going to sign in January? Well, guys, it depends a lot for me on Maruzic condition. If he's not able to play, and I mean, this is the second time he got injured and we're just in November. And so you have to think that you cannot do the full season only with Lazio in that position. So maybe Lazio should look to find a replacement there to guarantee a little bit of rest to Lazzari. But again, I think Lazzari is improving, and most of all, I think Lazio players now remember that there is Lazzari there and try to give me more the ball.
Yeah, I think he's growing into his role in the team. Another question we had, Steven Scarpula said, do we do anything in January? Should we do anything in January in terms of signing players? Masse responded to him saying we need urgently a player for the left wing. Do you think wing backs are something the club should or will look at actually signing in a mid-season window? I'm always sceptical about them doing anything really in a mid-season window, but especially on the left-hand side, I'm not saying I disagree with the idea that we could do with someone else there, but I just can't see it happening with Lulic there as the club captain, and then behind him you've got Johnny, who's a big summer signing. You've got Lukaku, who's finally being reintegrated into this team, and don't forget you've still got Reza Dermisi. The club spent what 9 million euros on last summer, so with 4 options in that position, I think it would be a bit wasteful to be spending more money on strengthening it. But how about the right hand side? Do you think with Marisic injuries and so on, you can see that happening?
Well, it depends how bad the situation is, because if you remember, Inzaghi said that Marzuc should have been back after the break and he didn't play against Sassuolo. Talking about the left side, Durmisi is leaving in January. He said he's very close to Fenerbahce. We're gonna see. But I think Inzaghi is testing Lukaku, till January, and then he's gonna make the decision. He tried Johnny in the central position in the friendly match against Lazio Primavera. So we're going to see what he thinks about that. But yeah, I think, and we said it also this summer, right? That those was the problem, the weaknesses of this team. And maybe you can say that Lazio did not address this problem very well at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it has to say it comes back to the same thing, which is what a great disappointment the signing campaign of the 2018 summer was, really, with Dermisi and Velan Berisha. I think that Denis Vavro still has a lot to prove as well. Before we kind of talk about getting more signings in, I think we probably need to talk about why it's taking as long as it is to bed in the signings we are making, especially the ones who are coming from overseas. There is always, I think, a period of transition needed for any new signing at any new team, but Lazio seem to need quite a lot of time to get players to the level that they want. I don't know whether that's because of the way the club's run, or whether it's because of the tactical blueprint they're being asked to follow by Inzaghi, or whether they're just not being given enough chances quickly enough.
But for
it does
example,
seem to be a theme.
Yeah, but for example, I was talking about the league this weekend, and I mean, you went to spend a lot of money on that player, and I think against Atalanta he played really well, but before that match we never saw the league playing that well. So if you consider that the league cost, what was it?
He's quite a good basketball player.
Yeah, but he's playing football. He got the wrong sport. So if you think that you were paid 42 million euros, I don't remember. So he should be really a difference maker. And it took him 2.5 months of playing every weekend, because he's been playing every Serie A match, because Chiellini got injured pretty soon. So if a player like De Ligt took 2.5 months, and he should be a top player, imagine how long will it take to Vavro, especially if he's never playing. So,
well, yeah, that I think is essentially the most crucial point here, isn't it? Is that if you are bringing players across from different leagues and it's their first experience of Serie A, and they're playing within a system that, let's be honest, is fairly technical and requires a fair bit of understanding as to how it works and how you should perform in that system, then you do need to be playing. And the one thing De Ligt is getting at Juve is game time, because yes, he's not settled as quickly as maybe people expected him to, because he was so good at Ajax last year, but he's playing every week. And yeah, probably benefits also from Chiellini screwing up his cruciate ligament at the start of the season as well. But they are giving him that game time. And look at Velan Berisha. He's not strung 2 games together for Lazio. He's barely been given an opportunity to find his feet. And yes, a lot of injury problems, but he's never really worked his way into fitness. Same goes for Dermisi. He hasn't been given a run of games. Vavro so far hasn't been given a run of games. And yeah, I kind of don't really know what we can expect from these guys unless they're being made to play. But the problem is as well that Inzaghi's first choice 11 are doing so well that why should he? Why should he be bringing these guys into the team? Why should he be starting Vavro ahead of Patrick if Patrick is doing exactly what he wants and he knows what he's going to get from him?
Yes, especially because, all these matches are very important for Lazio. There's not a match that you can say, okay, we can lose this one. Because if you're fighting for the Champions League, every match is fundamental. So that's why Europe League was important to test this type of players. And that's why I am disappointed that Lazio is not going further in the Europe League, probably. So, it's always a risk. I was thinking, on my YouTube channel, they asked me, do you think Vavro's going to play against Sassuolo? And I said, no, because it's such an important match. I don't see Inzaghi risking Vavro in a key match like that. And, next Sunday is another important match. Then is Juventus. There's not an easy match except probably the Coppa Italian one. But these players have to build confidence, and you build it playing often, consecutive matches. I don't think it's going to happen this year, and that's why it's going to be really tough for Johnny, Vavro, and so on to gain confidence and improve.
Well, this is the thing, and I think Iglitare gets a lot of credit and has become a bit of a darling of the press in the last couple of years because he has had so many success stories, during his time as sporting director, getting a lot of very good deals for players. Immobile, obviously, Lucas Leiva, Luis Alberto, all these guys. But the thing is, if you're going to, we've spent as much, I think, as much on Vavro as we did on Milinkovic-Savic. I think you've got to have a certain level of surety, I suppose, about what you're going to get from a player if you're going to spend that much money, because Lazio aren't a kind of team who are throwing out these 8-figure sums all that often. And I feel like their decision-making when it's come to actually splashing the cash hasn't been very good in the last few years. Lazzari, I think, is an exception to that because he follows a model I think we should follow more often, which is a player who fits the system and who's used to Serie A and who can fit straight into this team. We know exactly what we're going to get from him. And yeah, maybe Lazzari hasn't fallen into the team as quickly and as effortlessly as we might have hoped, but he's still definitely making a contribution. Whereas spending all this money, millions and millions of euros on your Dermisis and Berishas and Vavros, that doesn't seem to be quite having the same effect.
But do you blame Tare for this or Inzaghi? Because, Tare is buying the player he thinks is worthy, and then Inzaghi never give him a chance. So, I don't know.
Well, you would hope that there's a dialogue there, right? I mean, that's the whole point of a sporting director shouldn't be just going out there buying players he thinks fit the team. There should be a dialogue between a coach and a sporting director about exactly what kind of profile player they need. And yeah, I expect that is going on. And also, I can see why they signed Valon Berisha. I don't think that that's a terrible signing or a terrible waste of money because at the time it seemed very sensible. We'd seen what he could do in the Europa League. He was going to offer more quality than midfield, but we couldn't predict that he was going to struggle so much with fitness or to adapt. And the adaptability thing, I suppose, is something you're never going to really know with certain players until you try it. You're not going to know how they're going to fit in, how they're going to deal with that challenge.
No, absolutely. On our Facebook page, Ben Thomas is asking, is this the year that Lazio finally makes it to the Champions League? Well, Ben, we hope, because we saw improvement. But the season is still very long. I don't know. Alasdair, what's your thought about this?
Well, I mean, I predicted at the start of the season the Lazio would finish fourth, so there's no reason for me to back on that prediction now. If anything, I'm more confident about that now than I was at the start of the season because not only are Lazio exceeding my expectations, but our direct rivals for those places are doing a lot worse than I expected. I kind of thought Napoli would be pushing up there with Inter and Juve, like a lot of people did, and that we'd be battling for one place, but instead there are two places opened up and things are looking pretty good. So, look, I mean, the real test is always going to come. We know it's always going to come in the final stretch, and that's where this team has let itself down in the last couple of seasons, I suppose, in the final kind of quarter of the season. And this is where I suppose, looking ahead to Cluj on Thursday, anything but a win means we're out of the Europa League. And yeah, I know what you're saying, Vittorio, with you'd prefer to be in that competition and to be able to see more of those rotated players and see what they can do. But at the same time, going out of this competition is something that we haven't done in the last couple of seasons where things have fallen apart at the end. And I do wonder, because of this lack of strength, of depth in this squad and the way that they're going at the moment, if actually getting knocked out of the competition wouldn't be the worst thing in terms of Lazio's Champions League priority. It could be a blessing in disguise.
Alistair, talking about Europe League, do you do a huge turnover if you are Simone Inzaghi next Thursday? Or do you still try to put the best team available and try to win it?
Well, this is the point where we see how seriously Inzaghi actually takes the competition, right? Because
but I'm talking if you are Inzaghi, not what Inzaghi is going to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've just basically told you how seriously I take the competition. So yeah, my answer is absolutely take everyone out and put in the reserve team. No, I mean, I think I don't know. I feel like we I've been let down with this thought process so far in this Europa League campaign, but I do feel like at home against a team like Cluj, we should have enough to beat them with a team that has a few changes made to it. You know, by bringing in the likes of Cataldi and Parolo and Johnny Caicedo, these kind of guys, Vavro.
De Cagne, come on, he has to play.
I can't see it happening. You know, I mean,
yeah, no, me too.
I'd like to see it happen, but I just can't imagine it will. But then the problem is, you know, you were just saying, Vittorio, that when it comes to these players, we just don't have any games where it just doesn't matter what the result is. Well, if we don't get a win on Thursday, then we will do. We're going to have that final game against Rennes with absolutely nothing to play for. So then you'll get your wish at that point.
Yeah, but playing in a match that doesn't give you nothing is not the same, right? They have to play in a real match that is still worthy something. So, and we saw it last year, right? In the last two matches, it was terrible.
Yeah, I know it's not what any of us want, especially traveling all the way to France in the knowledge that you've got absolutely nothing to come for it. But you know, put ourselves in this position, and it's been a really, really bad European campaign. There have been plenty of what-if moments along the way. Obviously, the Celtic games both being lost so late on, but it's just fundamentally not been good enough. And the reserve players, the rotation players, have been brought into the team to get a chance to put their hand up and say they're worthy of a shot in the first team during the weekend matches. They've just totally failed to do that. But yeah, I mean, I expect Caicedo to start, for example, on Thursday, and I hope that he's kind of motivated and G'd up now after that, and he's the kind of player we can maybe look to say, like, you know, I'm more here to do more than just warm the bench, and I can make a difference here.
Alistair, talking about players we were looking for, Raul Moro finally got the transfer and played in the derby, because Saturday there was the Primavera derby, and as typical as Lazio things, he played only 10 minutes, he got injured, but in that 10 minutes he was able to allow Lazio to score the first goal. He stole the ball to the left back, I don't remember the name of Roma, run for 50 meters, enter the penalty box, and then I thought that there was a penalty, but the ref didn't give it, and Xiao scored, and Raul Moro had to get out of the pitch. But in that 10 minutes, we saw that this player, he's only 16 years old, is really, really interesting, guys. He's really, you can understand why Barcelona wasn't very happy to see him leaving. Still early, he played only 11 minutes, but in that 11 minutes, he showed really promising things. So keep an eye on Raul Moro. Obviously, he's not going to play this year with the first team, but I want to see him in the first squad next year, because this guy really has talent.
Yeah, promising start, and it's always good to get a derby win as well. So that's another reason this weekend has been a pretty happy one for us, isn't it?
Yeah, even though everybody was celebrating, and I was concerned because Raul Moro was lying in pain in front of the goal, and I said, I don't care about the goal. Tell me if the best player we have is got injured and will miss the rest of the season. Luckily, it was only a painful hit, so he's gonna be able to play next Sunday. So that's the positive thing. But yeah, the guy is really interesting. While unfortunately Cipriano didn't play, he's not playing really well. The Brazilian defender that came on loan from Santos, I don't think he's ready for Italian football.
In terms of first team signings, we did get another question on Facebook from Omid Shakabai saying, if you could sign one player, what position would it be in?
Right back, probably. If Maruzic is always injured, I think we need to sign someone there. You know that I always ask for a Vice Immobile, but now probably if I have to sign only one, would be a right back. A very good one, maybe coming from Serie A, so he doesn't need to take 2 months to get used to Italian football.
Yeah, I'd probably still go with a Vice Immobile if I'm honest. I mean, I'm scared about, it's been, 2.5 years, but I'm still scared about what would happen if anything happened to the guy. And I mean, especially given that Caicedo is the only other senior striker in the squad. I mean, Joaquin Correa has adapted to that role well. It's not his natural role. And then beyond that, you've got Bobby Adekanye, and it's not his natural role, and he's not a senior player. So I still think that is a kind of fairly terrifying prospect if you think about it too much. So for me, it would have to be a position that gets strengthened.
Yeah, it's true. It's really concerning. And, we said it this summer as well, that Lazio needed to sign someone as a Vice Immobile, but Inzaghi's happy with Caicedo. So, Zlatan, I'm sorry, but you're not coming to Rome. You have to find another destination. What do you think about Ibrahimovic to Bologna?
Why not? Why the hell not? Make everything more interesting, I suppose. Never against it.
Yeah, unfortunately Lazio has no space for you, Zlatan, so next year maybe.
Got Felipe Caicedo, so who needs Ibrahimovic?
Absolutely. Alasdair, do you have some stats to close the podcast?
Well, I mean, the obvious one we need to go to is to once again congratulate Ciro Immobile because the goal he scored on Sunday made him joint third top scorer in Lazio's history, joint with Tommaso Rocchi. So yeah, now he's just chasing big Beppe Signori and Silvio Piola. So he's got a bit of work to do with those two. But if he continues along this path, then I wouldn't put it past him. And yeah, the other thing is that 8 wins from the first 13 games is something Lazio have only ever done once before. Only ever done better than once before, I should say, which was 2 years ago when we got 10 wins in the first 13 games. So, yeah, I said before there's already been some comparisons made with the season from 2 years ago. I just hope that it doesn't end the same way.
Yeah, and in the Lotito era, this is only the second time that at this point Lazio is third or above. With Eddie Redia, Lazio was second beginning of December. Unfortunately, we finished fifth, so we didn't reach the Champions League that year. We hope, obviously, that this year finish a little bit different, the story. And we can see difference in this team. I mean, the motivation is higher. So, we're going to see. Guys, again, sorry, I apologize for my voice. Again, if you have to complain, you have to talk with Caicedo and tell him to score a little bit earlier. But thanks again for listening, me and Alasdair. Thank you, Alasdair, for joining me, and we're going to talk next week, right?
Absolutely. Hopefully you're sounding back like your old self again.
Who knows? Thank you, everybody. Talk to you next Sunday.
Thanks for listening to Lazio Lounge.